Well, hello, hello, hello. Oh god, that's a terrible opening. Well, hello, I'm Horror Queen Cosplay, and today I wanted to be incredibly self-indulgent and talk about one of my favorite indie games of all time. Frankly, even just I would rank it as one of my all-time favorite games, the Painscreek Killings. This is a game that, frankly, I feel like doesn't get talked about enough. And you know what? If I gotta be the one to make a video about it, so be it. So buckle up. Here we are. Today, we're gonna talk about the Painscreek Killings and why I frickin' love this game. The Painscreek Killings is a game that was created by EQ Studios, released September 27th of 2017. According to their Steam page, you investigate an infamous cold case in the eerie abandoned town of Painscreek. Search for evidence, connect the dots, and uncover who killed Vivian Roberts. Can you expose the truth behind this town's dark secrets? This is a game that doesn't have any quest markers, doesn't tell you where to go. You play as Janet Kelly, an investigative reporter, looking into not just the death of Vivian Roberts, but the deaths of multiple members of the Painscreek community. In this game, players are left to their own devices to explore, find keys, documents, and clues, primarily into the death of Vivian, but into the larger mystery as a whole. The town itself is inspired by a real town in England called Painswick, and it is very evident from photos. The town's older architecture, combined with the lack of next to no, almost just not quite sinister, but haunting music and ambient sounds, makes for a quite chilling experience. The game itself is not a horror game, although it sure does ride on the creepy factor. It's more in the line of a thriller, a mystery. I'm trying to sound cool here. The game itself is special, in my opinion. It stands out from games that would be in its same genre, walking simulator games. There's no combat, there's no fighting, there's no large scale, massive meteor is gonna kill the entire civilization. You're a journalist, just trying to see what the hell happened in this tiny town that is now long forgotten. You have a sense that there should be people here. This was once a lively town. But the lack of people makes you almost paranoid. Constantly while playing this game, I felt nervous that something was going to jump out at me, something was going to happen, that there should be people here. And in certain moments where things did happen were 5,000 times more terrifying because logically I should be alone. So why can't I shake the sense that something's over my shoulder, that something's watching me? It sure as hell makes for quite the experience when things do start to happen. It is so much scarier because I've been technically alone and I should be alone. It doesn't rely on jump scares, it just relies on your own dang head playing tricks on you. Things and sensations that, you may get in real life. Walking down a street and no one's there. Turning off the lights in your own home when you're home alone. Those sorts of kind of eerie feelings. Well, again, I don't classify this as a horror game. It certainly punches up the creepy factor. What makes, again, this game stand out apart from other games in similar genres, it's certainly not like Gone Home or Everybody's Gone to the Rapture or Dear Esther or hell, even Edith Finch. It has no narration. Any sort of story that you get is through documents that you find in the game. Not every document, most of these documents, in fact, are not required. But you're encouraged to keep searching so that way you can find out more and more about this story. Unlike Everybody's Gone to the Rapture, you don't see any of the events of what happens and leads up to these murders through little mini cutscenes or characters acting it out. It's all read in documents and diaries and things like that, and you're piecing it together based upon what you find, creating just a great story of twists and turns. Unlike Edith Finch, where you're walking around an abandoned home, you don't hear narration or thought processes from the character that you're playing as, Janet Kelly. Every thought that you have, every piece and clue to the mystery is put together by you. This is a case where using the silent protagonist is absolutely perfect. You are being placed in her shoes, and that, again, heightens not only the feelings of the environment, but the excitement of putting together the clues and solving this case yourself. So again, this does get closer to Gone Home, but unlike Gone Home, Janet Kelly has no connections to these characters. She is an outsider who's just trying to figure things out from an outside perspective. Now, before I start diving deeper and deeper and deeper into the game, I do kind of sort of want to talk about how I discovered them. Back in 2018, I was incredibly fortunate and I was able to travel and attend, for my first and only time, PAX South. Now, PAX South is technically the smallest of the PAX convention series. It was still an amazing and incredible experience. Something I really loved about PAX was the overall environment of speaking and talking to game developers in person. And that's how I discovered the Painscreek killings. EQ Studios was there. I had heard vaguely of the game on Steam because, let's face it, I'm addicted to video games and my Steam wishlist is 500 games deep. So yeah, I like games. But I came up to this booth. It was a simple booth playing, video footage of the game. Had two of the developers there. They had some flyers, things like that. And I started talking to them and they told me about the game. And they also highlighted how they have a very active Steam community, one that they themselves encourage people to talk and share spoilers and figure things out and use game guides. And that's something I'm going to touch upon a little bit later, but they just had a different environment to them. And talking to these developers about this game, I was intrigued. Alrighty, so I'm going to try and keep this as little spoilers as possible. Later on the video, I'll go into spoilers and stuff like that, and I'll make sure to leave a timestamp for you. So, the mechanics of the game are incredibly simple. Walking, picking items up, viewing items, things like that. There's also a camera function where you take pictures. You can use that to really have fun and take pictures of the environment, the streets, the signs, things like that, as well as take pictures of documents for you to be able to pull up easier and later. The game itself also encourages you to use written notes, and let me tell you something, yeah, you're gonna need to do some written notes. My written notes end up being super crazy every single time I play. Again, I've sunk 20 hours in this game, several playthroughs. I still can't frickin' remember everything all the time, so I usually end up writing a bunch of crazy notes. It adds an extra level of immersion to the game. It's necessary, but also helps enhance the experience. Of course, again, as I mentioned before, there is a very active Steam community, and the devs do encourage you to talk to other people, figure things out, and look up any times you're stuck, because, yeah, it's easy to get stuck. I don't say this in a bad way. Because the game doesn't, again, hold your hand or tell you really anything, sometimes you can feel stuck, like, okay, where the hell is that dang key? Why can't I figure this out? How the heck do I get into frickin' Oliver's photography shop? Oh my god. Things like that. So, yeah, every time I start playing, I always tell myself, okay, this is gonna be the time where I don't have to use a game guide. But I do kind of tend to always start doing that, and that's not anything bad on the game. The devs are aware of this, and again, they encourage people to look it up. They encourage people to talk to each other, to figure things out. If you're stuck, find some help, and they themselves are quite active on the Steam page answering questions that anybody may have, and that's absolutely wonderful to see. And it's not just because they're an indie game, there sure as hell are not this many indie developers out there that put nearly as much effort into their community as EQ does. And maybe I have rose-colored glasses here, but I'm always impressed by that about them, and I love that. And of course, finally, before I start diving more into the story, there are multiple endings and grades to the game. It's based upon how many clues you find, whether or not you can correctly predict the killer, things like that. Hell, you can even get an F rating for just turning around and walking out of the town instead of even stepping foot in there, which to me I find absolutely hilarious and a fantastic little extra detail, because Lord knows we all have that one or two games where when we love it, but anytime we're replaying it, we're like, man, I don't want to get back on that ship. I know that's just gonna go bad. I just want to turn around. So I appreciate that little extra attention to detail that they have. So here's a little bit more spoiler-free talk about the story. I've kind of touched upon a lot of things as above what makes this game set out from other quote-unquote walking simulators. When you just call a game a walking simulator, it kind of almost leaves out what makes these games so interesting. It's the story, it's the environment. But then again, story and environments are usually my favorite parts of a game, whether it be a shoot 'em up or something as quiet as this. And that quietness is part of the story. The setting of this dying small town where the youths are all leaving and the elderly are dying and nobody new is coming in. And again, going back into the characters, these characters and their story is what makes this game so strong. You have Vivian Roberts, our main murder victim, the wife of the former town's mayor, Charles Roberts, her daughter, Trisha Roberts, and then you have other characters such as Scott Brooks, Derek Tyler, and Scott's adopted father, Matthew Brooks, the priest of this small town, and even troubled characters like Andrew Reed and Bernard Hopkins. People who work in the mansion that Vivian, Trisha, and Charles live in. And of course, I'm leaving out quite a few other very important other characters, but they're all complex. They all weave into each other. And constantly through the game, I found myself shifting potential suspects. This person could have done this, that person could have done it, and that just made it all the more exciting. Every time I thought I figured it out, some new piece of evidence came out or it was found, some new journal, some key to open up some new door. And that just was so exciting. Plot twist after plot twist, but not in a bad movie kind of way, and the excitement of an actual investigation. Though, what do I know about actual investigations? I'm not a detective, but this game sure makes me feel like one, and I love that. This game's strengths are in the immersion, are in the feelings that it gives you. Alright, so before we start going up into conclusions, I do have a section for spoilers. There is a timestamp below that you can skip right to in case you don't want to see any spoilers and you're like, nope, do not tell me who murdered Vivian Roberts. I need to play this for myself. You've convinced me. So, but if you just kind of you're like, oh, I need to know now. Let's talk about it. Let's talk about the ending of this game. Let's talk about all this. Feel free and keep on watching. Okay, give yourselves 5 seconds. Yeah. All right, spoiler time. Let's go. Let's rock and roll. Okay, so I'm not gonna spoil the entirety of this game just because there is so much, so many tiny little plot twists and intertangles, but this game isn't as safe as it makes you think you are. You know how I talked earlier about, being alone? Logically you're alone. And I mentioned things happening. Well, there's 2 other people with you in that village. There's the murderer, and there's the ghost of Sofia. Now, who is Sofia? She's the key to everything. It's all about her. It all starts with her and ends with her. And she's dead. Yep, Sophie is a ghost. Yep, there is actually paranormal elements. But much like how Guillermo del Toro's movie Crimson Peak isn't a ghost story, it's a story that just so happened to have ghosts in it. This game is like that too. It's not a ghost story, it's not horror, it's a mystery that just so happens to have a ghost. You see her. She will spawn at random points in the game. Sometimes she'll be across the street when you exit Andrew Reed's home. Sometimes you'll see her standing at the roof of the hospital. Other times, yeah, and so on and so on and so on. And let me tell you what, the first time I saw her, I almost pooped my pants. I was terrified. But she's not there to hurt you. She's just watching, guiding, in a way. She shows up, or at least has the potential to spawn, in places of high importance to her story and to the story of Vivian's as well. She, in the end, saves you, or tries to save you, if you, mess up like I did the first time, from the murderer. Oh yeah, he's there. And when you if you happen to find the evidence of who that murderer is and his confession, suddenly you're met with a red bar at the bottom of your screen and intense music. Your heart pounds, and he's there with a axe. Oh my god, it's terrifying. You had become accustomed for several hours to walking around at your own pace, no sense of danger. And suddenly you mean to tell me I've got a health bar and I need to run for my life? Oh my god, what an intense shift in tone. And that surprise, well, some people would argue that they would love to know about that or be warned about that. It was actually a benefit. Again, this is a game that makes you feel, that gives you emotions. So to suddenly have that danger that you for the longest time had been playing off and telling yourself, oh, I'm crazy, there's nothing really here, suddenly that's real? It's intense. Fantastic. Chef's kiss. Love it, love it, love it. Now, I guess I should talk about the murderer and at least some of the major plot twists. The murderer is, at least of Vivian Roberts, is Matthew Brooks, Scott's adopted father. Scott Brooks, who is painted for most of the game as the number 1 suspect. But Matthew Brooks, a priest, one who is well regarded in the community as a good person, killed Vivian. But why? Well, turns out he was in love with Sofia, and Sofia, well, yeah. Yep, okay, well, yeah, Charles Robert, he's a filthy cheater, cheated on his wife, and, yeah. Scott is actually Sophia's son, who then was put up for adoption, and was adopted by Matthew Brooks, and oh, guess what? Turns out Matthew Brooks was in love with Sofia. Oh, and Sofia? Where did she go? What happened to her? Well, turns out that Vivian and Bernard Hopkins, who, by the way, Bernard Hopkins is in love with Vivian. Oh yeah, we got just twist after twist after twist. They're responsible for Sofia's death. Oh yeah, and by the way, poor Trisha, remember how I mentioned her? She and Scott were, in love. Yeah, here we go, incest plot twist. But yeah, so we got a lot of twisty turnies, and I'm sorry if that was super, super fast. That sure was a hell of a lot of information. But there's two things I want to break down to about this. The use of love and personal relationships as a major theme, and the incest plot twist. Oh boy, here we go. So, without trying not to make this video intensely long, but love is a huge factor and motivator for what these characters do in this game. You have the twisted, one-sided loves of Bernard and Vivian and Matt and Sofia, and the love triangles with Charles and Vivian and Sofia, as well as love triangles between Trisha Roberts, Scott, and her friend Derek Tyler, who, again, another unrequited love. And these are the motivations that fuel the characters to do and say terrible things. I wouldn't say that love is what motivates Vivian, just as a side note. Rather her standing and how others would view her. Love is, what certainly motivates the men surrounding her, or could be used as a motive for them to kill her or anybody else, potentially. And there are plenty of other themes in here, such as one's status in a community, and the old antiquated notion that a son is necessary to carry a line, and that they should be the one to inherit anything, yada, yada, yada. I don't say that to demean any of those themes, because those are all super intense. I'm just not going to be focusing on those explicitly for this video, but I do definitely encourage those who have played this game to talk about it in the comments, or, to think about it at least if you do so choose to play the game. Which leads into this giant, shocking incest plot twist. If I had a nickel for every time I played a game with an incest plot twist, I'd have 2 nickels, which isn't a lot, but it's weird that it happened twice. And you know what? They actually handle this one pretty dang well. I'm gonna draw upon a comparison to the video game 12 Minutes. It's a game that just came out recently, years after the Painscreek killings. And I'll tell you what, I'll admit, I do love this game. It's a great game. Another mystery with a time loop. You got some fantastic voice acting with my man William Dafoe and James McAvoy and Daisy Ridley. Great game, but sorry if I'm about to spoil 12 Minutes for you. You've been warned. Yeah, it's an incest plot twist. Turns out the husband and wife of the game are half-siblings. And yeah, there's some mind erasure, and yeah, he knew and still wanted to be in love with her, and yeah, now they've got a kid on the way, and yeah, it's a lot. And some people would argue that it is not a game that handles certain themes as well. I say some people, don't mean me. I think it's a very complicated game and a very complicated plot twist. And there is definitely merit in certain complaints about the way that, the wife suffers in the game and yada, 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 keep going. But what makes this one different, and why I bring it up, is the reactions of the male character. The husband in 12 Minutes, he has options, but the game essentially functions at its core that he chose to forget that he was related to her, that he still loved her. And of course, in the end, you can choose to tell her and things like that and break the cycle of abuse, or you can continue said cycle. It's up to you. It's a choice, but she doesn't necessarily have a choice. She has a choice to leave you if you choose to tell her, but otherwise, she doesn't have much of a choice. Upon finding out that Scott is related to Trisha, Scott immediately tries to cut ties with her. He knows it'll hurt her. He knows that it's bad. And he does love her, but he's like, this is messed up. I can't have this relationship with her, and it's gonna hurt both of us. So what makes Painscreek different? Scott, upon finding out that he's related to Trisha, immediately cuts ties with her, breaking her heart. But he knows it's the better thing in the long run to do. They cannot have that relationship that they had been building up to. It breaks his heart, breaks her heart, and especially since she doesn't know why he's suddenly abandoning her. Rather being lied to and manipulated, whether maliciously or not, to, your interpretation when it comes to 12 minutes, the lie to Trisha was still damaging to her. She still loved Scott, and that led to her death. In both instances, they're not happy endings, but there's something far more tragic and Shakespearean, not to sound pretentious, about the way that this particular plot twist is handled. It's a tragedy with both characters you can feel sympathy towards. In 12 minutes, I didn't feel sympathy for James McAvoy's character. I felt the same disgust that his wife felt, if you so choose to tell her about it. I suppose maybe that's why I've brought this up. So yeah, why did I make a video talking about this game? One that, certainly other YouTubers could be much more articulate about. But why? Well, because I flippin' love this game. I want more people to play it. I want to sit down and gush for the entirety of this video and highlight the uniqueness of this game. I haven't been able to replicate this sort of feeling in any other game. Yeah, sure, it can come close in something like Dear Esther or What Remains of Edith Finch or Everybody's Gone to the Rapture, so on and so on. But it'll never be the same. Yeah, not everybody's gonna find as much joy in this game as I did, but for those of you that like slower games, ones that really affect you emotionally, not just in the story, but in the atmosphere, this is a great game. It's one that's impactful to me. It's another piece in the puzzle, another game to add to a list of several that has changed how I view games and their potential as a medium. This is a story that would only work as a game like this. Yeah, you could probably make a movie or write a book, but it wouldn't have the same feeling. It wouldn't give me the sense of agency and investigation, the immersion in any other way of telling. It's about soaking in the quiet moments, the intense contemplations and hard work of solving a mystery. It's also the tragedy of a slowly dying town, a fractured family, and twisted love. So thank you. Thank you for making it to the end of this video, for listening to my rambles. I'm sure, as I hopefully make more videos like this, I'll get better about trying to explain my thoughts. For the most part, I hope that this video inspired you to take a chance on a small walking simulator game from a tiny little indie company based in Las Vegas, Nevada, to check it out. And hell, maybe you'll check out their new game that they've, at the time of this recording, will be coming out in spring of 2022, Scene Investigators. A similar vein of mystery work and exploration. So yeah, go play Painscreek Killings. Thanks for watching, and hopefully I'll see you again soon for more videos like this. Take care.